I'm here with musician and clinical psychologist Mia Pixley, and we're talking about her gorgeous new album, Margaret in the Wild. Welcome, Mia.
Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, so glad to have you. I'm really excited to talk about your new album and what you've been doing. And can we call this an official COVID release?
Yeah, we can. Yes.
Well, just to start, I want to say, in listening to the album, sometimes music is poetry, and I don't just mean the lyrics, but the music itself can be poetry, and that's how I feel about this album and about your work. And it's evocative on many levels. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering how you would describe your music.
Well, I am so touched to hear you say that. It actually kind of made me tear up, actually, because that is how I think of it as a world, and a world that I've kept quite private for quite a long time. And so for you to refer to it as poetic actually feels like very generous, but also, very, like I have like almost I have permission to say the things and have it actually land. Like it's in all of its multiplicity and what I'm trying to do, and communicate. So I really feel very touched that you use that word. And so, yeah, so what my hope is that it drops somebody into a world where one can receive and also find parts of themselves in it too. Like that's kind of what is the beauty of music. It's a dialogue. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that's what I hope.
Yeah. And what was the impetus for the album, Margaret in the Wild?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll start with the BART train. Okay. So I was doing busking, just street mm-hmm. performing. Mainly I had just finished up at San Francisco Conservatory of Music, and I had a bit of stage fright even after I finished. And I was like, I got to get over myself. Like, really get over yourself, Mia. So I decided to busk every Tuesday at the Lake Merritt BART station. And so many of the songs on the album are songs that I used as busking songs, that I just used my looper and stuff down there. I had like a whole little electric rig and everything. Yeah. And it felt wild. It felt wild to have people just go by, or some people stop, some people talk to me. And I felt like I was doing what I was supposed to be doing in terms of getting over this blockage I had about stage fright. And, in psychology, we call it like the depressive position. It's like a Melanie Klein. I don't know if you know Melanie Klein at all, but it's like the idea that you continue to go on being even though no one's paying attention to you. and that's what I was practicing. And so Margaret in the Wild is sort of taking these songs that I performed out in the BART station with often being ignored, and putting them out in an album and like making it kind of even more permanent and for people to ignore or not. Like it's just sort of a thing. It's a practice, really, a practice of sharing and being okay with being ignored.
Okay, so you were busking, and just so that people understand how your performances are, because your album has many instruments on it and it's multi-layered, and the looping device that you're talking about is it's your cello and your voice.
Yeah.
And then you loop the cello, you'll lay a cello line down and it'll loop, and then you play over it and you sing over it, and you may sing and create loops. And it's like, it's beautiful. And I think I saw some videos of you, like YouTube videos where you were performing live. It's great. People should check that out.
Thanks.
Yeah. And so, okay, so now I'm really curious about, you're a clinical psychologist. You have a Ph.D. in psychology, and you have an active practice.
Yeah.
And so, and you've also been a cellist. You've been studying cello and playing cello since you were 4.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you have a very active now, I don't know how long it's been going on, but you've been performing and you're playing with a lot of people. We'll get into that. And you're doing a lot of musical projects. So which came first? Were you doing the musical thing? Were you doing the clinical thing? Were you simultaneous?
Yeah. Interesting question. I almost, you know what? I think they came together.
Uh-huh.
I can't believe it. I'm just realizing this, but because even at 4, when I started, the cello was an instrument to like help metabolize all these feelings I had, and mostly sadness.
Mm-hmm.
And because the cello is just great for sad. It's the best for sad, I think, or one of the great things for sad. And so yeah, I feel like my interest in the psyche, or like the human experience, and my interest in actually connecting with my own experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't like terrified of it, was with music, was with the cello.
Mm.
And so I would say they kind of came together. I had both interests and predilection to do that. So they came together, but I never really thought of myself as a professional musician until I applied to San Francisco Conservatory of Music.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. So yeah, the PhD came before that.
Okay. So you got your PhD in clinical psychology, and then you got your degree from the conservatory.
Yeah.
Fascinating. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it was. Well, I have been a little bit of a overachiever. I guess it's kind of a problem growing up, and I think that was also part of what I was working out with the cello.
Mm-hmm.
And continue to work out, to slow down and just like be kind of. But yes, so I went into clinical psychology mainly to work with children.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And children who are adopted. That was my main focus. And I went to London to study adoption and child psychology and everything. But music throughout, I was always playing, always playing in bands or like making stuff up. And then it wasn't until I finished my pre-doctoral internship in Oakland that I was all set to start a postdoc and everything, but I got a call to go be in an off-Broadway musical back in New York City. And I was like, oh, I think I want to do that.
Yeah.
So I didn't do my postdoc. And then after that run of shows, which was a dream, then I continued to do my postdoc and continued on. But then I was like, you know what? I think I actually want to make sure that I take the music along with me professionally too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's great. Yeah. That's amazing, really, that that you're able to like do that.
Yeah,
because oftentimes you really have to choose or something. I mean, I don't mean like you should have to choose. I just mean, something pulls you, into that direction. So that's so great. And so you're able to balance the two.
Yeah. I so 2 days a week I have my music days, collect project days, and then 3 days a week I have my practice, and I end early, like on Fridays. So it's sort of like it feels balanced in that way. And I imagine it's going to evolve. I was just talking to my husband earlier this morning, and I was like, I think I want to have my practice supplement my like other endeavors. Like I'd like to write more about the intersection of music and I don't know, human experience. So
yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And so you said that the cello was it helped you as a child, like process, big feelings.
Yeah, it really did. I myself am a transracial adoptee, and I remember, so I just, I didn't fit in anywhere. I grew up in Texas, and very like sort of white environment, and I'm Venezuelan and Nigerian, but I didn't even really know that at the time. I was like, really didn't know much about my identity. I just knew that I was brown.
Right.
So it was really, really painful, and like,
right.
But in a way that was like not metabolized at all, or not given words, even, so when you said poetic for the album, I was like it's very touching to get, So music, though, for me, because it speaks, it was words first, all these sensations and feelings that I had so early. And I played from the very beginning very expressively. And sometimes my teachers were like, you need to maybe not move so much because you're moving a lot. Like, what is
no, keep moving. It's good. Yeah. It's like music is this, it's beyond words, right?
Yeah.
And it's purely a feeling. So it makes sense.
Yeah. So great.
It's
such a gift.
Yes. I'll just share a small part of my experience, which was that not even knowing, that I was kind of cyclically depressed, like that I had kind of a chronic depression, which I've actually healed through my own work, but, probably starting as young as, puberty, music was therapy, writing, singing, singing was like, you just go into that place. It's the state that just holds you, right? It holds you. And, I don't know what I would have done without it, really. It really changed a lot of things. And I relate to you sharing that about, busking and, getting over yourself and stuff, I realized like I was like chronically like shy and self-conscious, but then I would keep putting myself, on stage because you had to do that, and every time I'd quit, every time. I was like, I quit, I can't do this again. And then after the show, I'd be like, okay, all right. And I finally played this gig that was so huge, like it was like a big festival, and I, it was a sea of people, and I was like, oh, Laura, you can't. You got, if you don't die doing it, you really can't be like, have stage fright anymore.
This is huge. Yeah.
It's like, you really, it's like ridiculous, But it's, what I realized, it was like, I was working through acute self-consciousness,
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
And terrifying the hell out of myself too, but that was a different thing.
Torturous.
We do what we do till we figure it out, right?
Yeah.
That's great. Wow. Well, there's something that you describe, I read in your bio, and I just want to touch on that. And it says that, and I'm thinking this is about your clinical practice as well, but that music, in your music, you're interested in this reconnection to the self, the other, and the natural world. This is what you're exploring. There's more that you say, but in essence, this is what you're exploring.
Yeah. And I feel that what you just described as with your stage fright and like, the holding that happens when one sings, and also the feeling of connection when people are like listening, when it does, or when making music with people, which is also what Margaret in the Wild was about too, is is like, these songs were all played in isolation on a looper with just me and I was like, okay, you gotta start to relate to, and you gotta share your songs with other musicians to add their voice on to. Yeah. And so, yes, I feel like how do I say this? The multi-directionality of music, that it's internal, it's outward, and it is, to me, it seems like intrinsic to it is nature. I feel like music is part of the natural world as far as I'm concerned. Other animals sing and, communicate with sound. I don't know. I mean, and I feel like that we do it naturally with our offspring. And that was actually one of my dissertation topics, was first time mothers' experiences of singing to their infants. Like music is just such a wonderful tool that exists. And I feel like, yes, it's about reconnecting to the self, connecting with others. And in so doing, in the practice, it connects us to the natural world, because if whatever is within is without, as far as I'm concerned too. So that's my answer to that question.
Yeah. Well, you in your video and I'm forgetting which, because I watched it a little while ago, I'm forgetting which video it was from the album, but you're out in the desert and you're
oh yeah, in the daylight. Yeah,
in the daylight. Okay.
Yeah. And
you just feel you just feel nature, and it just feels like almost like you're an homage to nature, or something, where you're in it.
Yeah, because I feel like there's a rhythm to nature, and a rhythm and the chaos, all of it. But I feel rhythm and groove have a huge part of my music. And In the Daylight's a super groove song. It's like it's meditative. And for me, if I'm hearing any kind of beat, I'm moving, I'm dancing. And music and dance go hand in hand for me. My teacher told me to stop moving so much. I was like, no, I can't, lady.
Oh, listen to
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I have a friend whose daughter is a great violinist, and and she's just moving the whole way, and the teacher's like, it's like, we're like, no, go for it.
Do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you kidding? It's coming through you. What are you supposed to do? Sit there all,
Yeah. And to me, it's also part of like the life force. Like, it's so erotic and like, life-giving, that's also, again, like an homage to nature. It's just like life.
Yeah.
Here we are. So
yeah. Well, there's something coming through you, and you're the channel for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I remember I was doing a songwriters showcase a long time ago, because I'm old, but and there, I'm joking. It was a while ago, and all the artists were a lot older than me. And there was this kind of group of songwriters from the village, kind of the 60s and 70s in the village, and that had started then, and this was probably in the early 90s or something, like Livingston Taylor and these sort of folks. But there's a guy named Eric Anderson, and he's a great folk songwriter. And he said, I remember when he introduced his song, he said, I really appreciate that this song is coming through me, because it could choose to come through someone else.
Yeah.
And so being that channel and being open to it, rather than like, shutting it down and being like, it's got to fit in this way, it's sort of it's like the opposite. It's like opening, right?
Yeah. And it's like the practice of staying open. And I think, to link back to your question about how, this idea of reconnecting to self, other, in the natural world, links to my clinical practice.
Yes.
It's the same exercise for me, is staying open for the field between me and, the person in front who I'm talking to and with. Like, things just drop in, and I just need to get out of the way. And let it drop in. And it's the same. And so when I'm sitting down with my instrument or thinking of songs or just, being with myself, it's that practice that then I carry with me to the clinical work.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, really. Yep. Lucky clients. Because in a way, it's also like holding open that field, right? Yeah, you're getting out of the way, you're holding the field, they're having their experience, and you're holding it. And yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
So it really, they really inform one another, the clinical work and the music.
Yeah. And like, sometimes I had the fantasy of like, oh, maybe I just want to be a musician. Like, maybe I just want to try it and just try the hard road. But I, because they've come together for me from a very, very, very beginning, which I realized earlier in our conversation, they are both, they just inform the other. And I feel like my task at present is to get the ratio right, like I'm baking or something. And it's dynamic, I imagine like sometimes I want more of one and less of the other. But I think I want both the whole time, I think, maybe I'll be wrong, but
that totally makes sense to me. And you can do that, especially now. I mean, I think, there was a time when, as a musician, you just had to be touring all the time, and there was a good thing about it because, you're on stage a lot and you were honed your craft in a particular way, but it was a hard road. So it's really nice to, I'm just looking at some of the projects that you've been involved on, how wonderful, I think, so the DeYoung Museum, Pixar, the lovely Windham Hill Solstice series with Barbara Higbie and Todd and Barbara. So all of those things you get to do.
Yeah. And I feel like because it's this time that we're in, and I think I've toured a little bit, not as much as you have done, and what you share. I think touring extensively as a musician wouldn't really suit me and my temperament. I really like, I need my creature comforts and mostly my swimming pool or the ocean I like to swim, like that's the other thing that like grounds me is going in the ocean.
Touring old school I don't recommend it at all.
Really? Okay.
No way. No, there's no, if you don't have to, don't do it. That's my thought.
The wildest I get at this point is with touring with Barbara Higbie for the Windham, and that's perfect.
That's nice. And Barbara can tell you the stories of the days. I'm sure she has.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Wow. It blows my mind.
Yeah. And speaking of Barbara, you will be touring, you will be doing the Winter Solstice series, provided everything stays open. Is that the plan right now?
It is, yeah. And actually it also just made me think another collaboration that we just did is Barbara, I mean, imagine she just like dumped out 2 albums worth of music. And so I was also really on honor to play on those albums again. I played on Resonance, which I love that album. It's so beautiful. It helped me through the pandemic, I have to say. And then, I think she'll be selling that at her Winter Solstice, one of the albums of the new ones.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I saw that she was doing that. I've got to check in with her and get her back on and talk about it. But and I saw that you were playing on that. I first saw you at time has gone, but I think it must have been 2019. It must have been the 2019 Solstice concert. And so you were with Todd and Barbara and
Will, maybe.
Yeah, Will and the other guy.
Oh, Alex.
Alex. Yeah.
Alex, yeah.
I should know that name. But I have to say, you guys as a trio, oh my God, you, Todd and Barbara, forget it. Like, that's it. Like, you know what I mean? It's like,
Cool.
it is so good. Like,
Awesome. More, because that's what we're doing for this next tour. It's just the three of us.
oh my God, it is so good. I mean, that's all you need.
Yay.
It's brilliant. No, it's brilliant. It's going to be great.
Thanks.
So.
Yeah. Todd's such a versatile player and he can do all these things. And he also has like such, he has like such a residence in both of his energies, the feminine and the masculine. He occupies both so well. Yeah. And so it's just really nice.
Yeah. And I imagine that, like if that was a tour bus, it would be a really fun tour. It'd be a really nice, gentle, sweet, deep,
super chill,
fun tour
bus.
bus.
Tea.
No drama is what would be. That's great. And you recently did something with the DeYoung Museum and Pixar.
Yeah. So the DeYoung was actually really lucky. They are doing something so cool. They're just trying to, renegotiate how their role in sort of colonialism and they're just taking the bull by the horns and like inviting artists who are of color or to share their experience. And so the DeYoung actually partnered with a nonprofit crossover classical organization called Mercury Soul, and it's headed by Mason Bates, who is also on staff at San Francisco Conservatory of Music, and he's sort of well-established composer. And so they reached out to me saying, hey, do you have any songs that would fit what we're trying to do here with the DeYoung? And I was like, yeah, I have the song, Everything is Slow Motion. And it's about like essentially racism and systemic racism. And here's the song. And they liked it. And they're like, all right, we're going to pay you to make a video in the museum with a beautiful dancer. And Kimberly Olivier, she is also I think she identifies as Black. And she was part of the San Francisco Ballet and had recently left. It really was like a ripe time to do the song for her too. And both of us in the classical world and what I'm also trying to do, which isn't really classical, it's some kind of thing that's not. And we just vibed. And so she choreographed her piece to my song. And it was really one of the highlights so far.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'm guessing that some of the what she encountered is, not getting certain parts or that kind of issue because of race. And, that song, Everything is Slow Motion, is right there, poetry. It's so evocative. It really brings you into this place. So I'm really excited for you. And I want to see that. And I'm really glad that DeYoung's doing that because it's important. It's important. And it's necessary. It's like about time,
And I think it relates to this thickness that you're talking about. Like we can't, even if we don't want it to happen, like it's the time, like we got to go with it. And I think, certain organizations can resist it to some extent, but at some point we're going, So I appreciate their like openness and receptivity to what's happening collectively.
Yeah. And we were talking before we went on about like this time and that, this kind of this thickness to things, that things just have intensified and they're not really letting up, and that there'll be these kind of this thickness to things, and then maybe a little bit of, less thick and then a thickening And sometimes I experience it as like a slowing, and a quickening. Time is lost all. Time makes no sense to me at all. Like, is this a normal part of aging, or is this the times? Like I check with my younger friends, they're like, no, it's really crazy. So, but in thinking about that and what's happening now, there's so much change. I think we'll look back at this time and say there was so much change so quickly. Big paradigm change, and it does not feel fast to me. It feels like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Are you kidding? This is still happening? Are you kidding? That guy just did. Are you kidding? Voters, rights? Are you kidding? Abortion? Like, are you kidding me? All of it. But at the same time, it's a quickening. It's sort of like, it's sort of like the pulls back to be able to push forward, right? And I think we're all collectively in that. And we're more aware of being in a collectively in that than we've ever been. We've been forced to we can still distract from it, but I mean, everyone's going through it. And particularly because of the pandemic, the pandemic makes it, absolutely undeniable. But
and then even with the distraction, I think we can try to distract ourselves, but then it does not hold up after. It just doesn't, because practically it just doesn't.
Yeah.
I tried.
It just doesn't work. Right? How many television shows can we power watch?
Yeah, like I keep scrolling on my phone and it feels awful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that becomes part of the practice and part of that expanding of the self. Right. And I imagine, you're experiencing it in your clinical practice, like you're seeing, you can tell, like generally speaking, like I would imagine people are going through it.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of therapists with completely full practices right now.
I think so.
And so, people, for those who are able, and then, I see a lot of lower fee folks to account for all the changes, and just people who just don't have means. The time is pressing to figure it out so we can live our lives.
It's kind of a waking up, hopefully.
And a lot of grief, I think grief that's been there for years, but it's like it's pressed through the shield, it's shot up and it's everywhere.
That's interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. That it would be harder to defend, have defenses against it that suppress it. We have a culture that supports that kind of distraction and suppression, and like, hey, just be okay, power through. Pain is gain.
Positive vibes don't, like, oh, what? No, don't do this to me.
That's right. Yeah. But we're growing up a little bit as a culture.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so, actually. And just for that, everything is slow motion. Just speaking of art, let's say art as also an option to connect with self and other. And that line is actually from a play that I saw in downtown Oakland. Cat Brooks. I don't know who Cat Brooks is, but she's a political activist and actor, theater person in the Bay. She was in a one-woman show about Natasha McKenna. She wrote it, who was killed in a Fairfax County prison. She was tasered to death. And so this was a line in Brooks's play about Natasha McKenna. Everything is, and nothing happened. No, like the people were not persecuted or any, of course. And she said, and the line in the play, as I was sitting there watching it, was everything is slow motion, like it's not supposed to hurt. And so I heard the line. I was like, that is a damn good line. Like, and so I put it in a song.
That's great. That's great. Wow. That makes a lot of sense. You also have collaborated with your husband, who is a visual artist.
Yeah.
And that's lovely. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I actually have some of his paintings here right now. So that was to help. So we had just had our first son, and we were both about to murder each other. And we're like, hey, let's use this energy towards something, that's not our kid, and like wanting to murder each other. So we called it Spar Sweet, and it was, he would make a painting, then I would look at the painting and make a song. And then I would make a song, and then he'd listen to the song and make a painting. And it was just a way of sort of seeing each other again, and being open to each other and what each was experiencing at this time, just to be more generous with ourselves and with the other. And it was really helpful, actually. It was hard, but also helpful and exciting. It was exciting. I really liked that project, actually.
Yeah, that's a great project. And it's like a dialogue between you and learning each other's language in a way.
Yeah.
It's really great.
And I learned from him, actually, the way he approaches art, his paintings, which is very much in layers. Like, so he'll make some gestures, some marks, and then like step back and look at it, then return, because he's an abstract expressionist painter. And I do that now when I'm recording like demos. I'll add a line of like, whether it's like harmony, and then I'll listen, and then I'm like, oh, this needs something else. And then I'll add more. And so I'll also do it in layers. It was a really useful thing to learn, actually, from him.
Oh, that's neat.
Cool.
And there again is a little bit like poetry too. When you're putting the words down, and then it's like, see where they go, change them, what needs, that's so cool. And, I'm wondering what effect the pandemic has had on you as an artist and also as a mom.
Yeah. I feel as an artist, it's actually been very helpful because I haven't had as much to do. But on the other side, paradoxically, I've also had a whole lot to do as a mom, and my son is now 4, so he was in daycare, but we had to take him out for a while because of the pandemic. But that was hard to figure out how to juggle all the things between my husband and I. My husband works from home, and he's worked from home actually even before the pandemic. But so I felt like a lot of moms, I feel a lot of guilt anyway. And I think something I had to and continue to practice is giving myself a freaking break.
Yeah.
Just give myself a break. And and that's where I think, not having so much on the calendar during the pandemic, and it's obviously filling up a lot more now because of how we're all shifting and adjusting and being vaccinated and all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. But having more downtime to make art and sit with some of those feelings that I had was really helpful.
Oh, great. Yeah. And how's your son doing?
He is great.
Yeah.
He is great. He really likes building things. He's a big builder. And so I don't know, it's just been really delightful to see him discover new building materials and kind of, there's magnetiles now. Before it was like, the wooden train tracks that he likes to put together, but now he's graduated to magnetiles, and then he uses Jenga blocks, and I don't know, it's just cool. So he's he's fun. He's really fun.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I'm always checking in with friends and family who, because it's a really tough time for kids and for parents with kids. It's just,
Yeah.
it's an added stressor, I think. So,
Yeah. And I think that's been, I mean, I think I mentioned building because that was one of his outlets because I think he felt so out of control. I mean, developmentally, I think he was already feeling that, but this added thing, like he had his birthday, all the kids had their birthdays over the pandemic, and it was just really, he's like, no, I remember him saying, it's not my birthday. It's not my birthday. Because he just didn't, he's like, where's my freaking party? I want my party. My friends.
Yeah.
It was just, but he's found a lot of, he's found a lot of ways to, I guess what I'm learning to express what the sadness that he's feeling and then also feel a sense of agency.
That's great.
Yeah.
It helps to have a mom who's, clinical psychologist who specializes in working with kids.
Yeah, well, or that are really going to mess them up. So putting away money now for therapy later.
There you go.
There you go. At least I'm thinking ahead.
So like college fund, therapy fund.
Yeah.
We all need it. That's great. So what's next for you? What are your plans for the future?
Well, speaking of grief, I actually just, I finished a residency at Lucid Art Foundation, just in Inverness. So I was only going there two days a week, but it was nice. My husband's amazing, we're coordinating. And so is Makai, not my son. And so there I created five pieces to a poem by my mentor, friend, colleague. His name is Forrest Hamer. He's a psychoanalyst and poet. Okay. And he's also African-American. And the poem I worked with was Passage. And it's a poem about being in the ocean and uses the ocean as metaphor for grief and the attempt at wholeness in the midst of grief. So trying to stay whole and not fall apart. Or falling apart, but also keeping a hold on things to just hold on to. So I wrote these 5 songs recently, and so now I'm actually going to go into the studio in November, and it's for a cello quartet with percussion and synth and vocalese. I don't actually do any of. There's no lyrics because the lyrics are the poem. The poem will be read in the beginning track, and then each song highlights like one of the holds that one might have to help one through grief.
Wow.
So it's called Passage. The whole project's called Passage, and I'm really excited about that. And then I'll be performing that at Aquatic Park in Berkeley in April. I got money to do that too. And so that'll actually be one of the first times I'll be playing my music with a group out in the wild.
Oh, great. You mean like literally your first time?
Yeah. I mean, like I play as a soloist a lot, like I perform, but I usually only play on other people's stuff if it's a group stuff. But this will be my first time, I love cello. I love multiple cellos. I'm a sucker for that. So I get to have my multiple cellos.
Oh, that is fantastic. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
So you'll keep us posted on that, and we'll social media about it.
Yeah. That's great. And the series is beautiful. I mean, just to plug it, it's called Moonstruck Concert Series. And this wonderful person named Jaron Feely, he does these outdoor, he calls them wild concerts, and they're outdoor concerts in like these very beautiful places. Sometimes you have to hike to them, and somehow he schleps the instruments and everything out, and it's such a magic thing. But this one will just be at Aquatic Park, so it's easy to get to.
Oh, that sounds exciting. I'm going to have to look into this, and hoping that things will be shifting. Well, we know they will be shifting. We'll just be kind of in the thick of it, as it were. As we move through things, and hoping that the Winter Solstice series happens.
Yeah, I really hope that happens. I think that'd be really fun.
Yeah. Well, Mia, thank you so much for taking the time to be here and to chat with me and share your music.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being interested, Laura.